Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to some more Alex Murdaugh. I know you guys thought we were done, but we found some more footage, and this is all about the tools that were used to wipe his whole family out. You know, his whole little generation that he created. So let's get straight into this situation. There he is, Mr. Ugly Murdaugh, my boy.
Family weapons were used to commit this crime. And this is evidence that was presented to you. First of all, we'll talk about the blackout. And you've heard testimony that there were 2 blackouts purchased in December of 16.
Look at, hold on. They bought 2 blackouts. One was for $9,000 and the other one was just for $800, bro. That's a bit of a price difference there.
And that one went missing around Halloween of 17, years prior.
Oh, basically the scope cost that much. Well, I'm just assuming because there's one without the thermal scope and there's one with. I'm assuming that thermal scope is some bread right there. Imagine shooting hogs at night with the thermal scope, bro. Oh my God, that sounds amazing. Anyway.
And that a replacement without a thermal scope was bought in April of 2018. 3 blackouts that the defendant purchased can only account for one of them.
Yeah, so I'm sure he was hoping it would just go away because remember he said his son lost it when he was drunk that night, so they replaced it. But what happened to that other one? So I'm assuming, you know, he had it. He had a third one and then just tried to get rid of it and made it look like, he lost it, so he never got it back.
You heard from Paul's friend Will Loving. And first of all, let me say this. You heard the defendant in his various statements, and he's very concerned about saying that they didn't have a blackout. There was no blackout along with them, even though he slipped up once and said, yeah, we were out looking for hogs. And you heard from his law partners to do the same thing, saying, yeah, you can look for hogs in the daytime. Very, very concerned early on in the statements and saying they didn't have the blackout, they just had a .22 pistol. And he also said, eventually, he's like, well, I think I replaced it. Well, I guess I replaced it. I'm certain I replaced it if you listen to his various statements.
Yeah, he was like, I'm certain I replaced it.
The defendant said the gun went missing around Christmas time of 2020, but Will Loving said, no, I was with Paul. I was with Paul in turkey season.
So they would be using it.
The spring. I was with Paul in turkey season, and we sat out at the steps right outside the house that y'all went to today.
And they shot the turkeys from the window.
Right on that side entrance that goes into the gun room. And if you look down, you can see how they were digging a pond and how you could fire down in that area. And they set up some targets to sight it in. And we were shooting that other gun. We were shooting that other gun, that replacement gun. And it had a red dot sight on it.
They were shooting the blackout way after Christmas. And they confirmed that when they found the little casings and stuff. So it really isn't, it's not looking good for our boy. And I think this is what honestly really sent him back is because the unaccounted blackout, bro. And it's an expensive gun. It's not like you just like, oh shit, can't find that. Like,
A thermal scope, but a red dot. A red dot, which is not good at shooting at night. But they were shooting it and sighting it in with the red dot, the tan gun. He was with Paul while they were shooting that gun right there. And what did Jeff Croft, who testified before you, find right there? Weathered cases, or casings.
Exactly what I was saying.
Weathered cases, right where Will said he and Paul were shooting that gun just a couple months prior to the murders.
So that is 100% the gun that was used. That can't be found. The third gun, he probably got it for Paul after he lost the, thermal sight. He was like, you dumbass, you lost it. There's a lot of money. We're going to replace it. Throw a red dot on it, a few $100s, no harm, no foul. We found our murder weapon.
S&B, 147 grain.
Blackout cases.
Blackout rounds.
Where's that
And
gun?
those rounds and empty boxes, and the pictures are in evidence, and the rounds are in evidence, were found all over that property. S&B 147 grain blackout. There were full clips found, there were empty boxes found, and there were also cases found, S&B 147 grain blackout rounds found across the street at their shooting house. Two separate locations on the property. But what's really important, again, goes back to what Will said. I was with Paul when we shot that replacement gun right there.
I wish Will knew where they would store it. I mean, it wouldn't make a difference because Murdaugh would, move it from there. But it would just give even more evidence that the gun was clearly in existence,
Right there. And you heard forensic scientist Paul Greer testify that the 6 cases, items 2 through 7, the 6 cases found around Maggie that killed her were loaded into, extracted, and ejected through the same firearm that fired those weathered cases right outside the door where you
Oh, wow. I didn't even know forensics can go that deep. So I thought he was just going to say, oh, yeah, the casings around her were 300 blackout. But they went even deeper and saying that it was fired, extracted, and, extracted from the gun from the same 300 blackout. So basically, Alex would have to go through this story that someone stole the gun, right? He lost it. Someone stole it. The replacement gun got stolen. And on top of that, they used the same cartridges. You know what I mean? It's not going to work out.
Today and at the shooting range across the street. A family blackout.
So it's 100% the same family gun. So it's either he used it or someone stole his gun and used it on his family, which is very unlikely, especially where they live. You guys can clearly see that they're not really, in society like that. They're pushed away like most rich people are. They're in the corner.
Killed Maggie. It was present just a couple months prior to the murders, and it's gone now. But what about the shotgun? The 12-gauge shotgun that was loaded with 1 Federal double-aught buck and 1 dry-lock #2 steel shot.
Now, if you go back to the third interrogation, you'll see that they told him that the loads were consistent with the shots that were shot into his family. So it kind of means that he would have had to load the same type of shells. And then I think he had told them, like, no, he doesn't mix and match, shells with other shells, But clearly he was lying about that because they kind of cornered him into admitting that he does load his guns that way.
Well, first of all, you heard that the 2 weapons that Paul often favored and often carried, shotgun right here and the blackout. Those were his 2 guns, his favorite guns, aside from his deer rifle. The defendant had that gun with him when Daniel Green, the first deputy on the scene, showed up. And shotguns, as you heard, are a little bit different than rifles. And the conclusion there was that the 2 fired shells that were inside the feed room that killed Paul had class characteristics similar with that Benelli, Super Black Eagle 3, but insufficient individual identifying marks to either match or exclude it.
Oh, so what he's saying is that the loadout of the other shotgun, if I'm correct about this, is basically the same as the shotgun that was used to kill Paul. So we're only inferring that he loaded this shotgun this way and he just, mentally loaded the other shotgun the exact same way. It has to be the same person. I think that's what he's trying to say with this.
That shotgun right there. But what else did you hear about the shotguns? Paul had this Benelli Super Black Eagle 3. That was his gun. Camo print, camo strap. Nolan Tootin, Nathan Tootin, Will Loving, Rogan, all identified that as Paul's gun. It's the one that Alec had. It's got Maggie's DNA and blood on the receiver. You heard from the DNA expert. And it was loaded with 12 gauge and a 16 gauge misloaded round.
Same loadout.
What else did you hear? You also heard about the Super Black Eagle 2. And you heard from Nolan and Nathan that this was Buster's gun. This is the Super Black Eagle 2 that had the Mojo sticker on it. And that was recovered during SLED's search of the residence the next day. You heard from Nathan and Nolan that the defendant's favorite gun was a Super Black Eagle 1. Remember Nathan going through each one of these guns and how knowledgeable he was as to the differences between them? SLED search Moselle for every 12 gauge. No Super Black Eagle 1. Weapons. Family weapons killed these victims.
Okay, so they had a Super Black Eagle 1, a Super Black Eagle 2, and a Super Black Eagle 3. But Alex Murdaugh, so all these guns are loaded the same type of way, right? And then Alex Murdaugh's favorite gun, as explained by Nathan, was the Super Black Eagle 1. And mysteriously, that's what's missing. So it's kind of like, man, who else is it? The evidence is so, like, high against them. They would literally have to just find someone who walked in and said, yeah, I killed them. Here's pictures of me shooting them, for anyone to believe them. Like, if I was in the jury right now, I would kind of be like, man, dude, like, even if I liked them, like, damn, bro, like, you're guilty.
On top of that, just like the S&B 147, well, not as much, but they're in evidence, Federal double-aught buck and the Winchester dry-lock steel 2-shot rounds were recovered at various locations on the property.
So it's the same loadout, every gun. So it's not even, oh, the family guns are used. And it's also the same loadout is used in most of these guns, which has to point out a family member also doing the crime. You know what I mean? That's crazy.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean, sir? Break it down for me.
We talked about motive, means. The defendant had the means to commit these crimes.
Oh, for sure. Look at his face. Oh my God. And we're back to the suits, you know, the suit with the crinkle in the back. That's his trademark at this point. Jesus. Hold up real quick. I gotta shout you guys out for getting me up to 2K, right? 2K subscribers. I love you guys. Get me up to 3K. Make sure you tell your grandma, your auntie, your niece, your nephew, your cousin. Tell everybody, hit that subscribe button. Love you guys. Let's get back to it.
At the beginning of the case, I talked to you about some of the evidence that you would hear. And I held up my cell phone. And there's been a lot of that evidence, but the last witness you heard in the state's case in chief was Peter Rudolphy, and he went through that timeline. And what does it show? We've gone motive, means, opportunity. Opportunity to commit the crime. And what does this timeline show? These are all the information, the various sources of information that were in this timeline. And let's look at what it shows. First thing right here is that the defendant arrived at Moselle at 6:42.
Man, you know you're screwed when they have cell phone tracking dots that follow you. So, one, you have the family guns. Two, it's loaded the way that you like them loaded. The gun that you like the most, the shotgun that killed Paul, is missing. And the 300 blackout that went missing is the one that was used to kill him. So the guy who stole that gun really waited, like, perfect timing to come back around, or else Come on, Alex blasted both of them.
Now, I'll say one
Now they got cell phone record. It's over with, bro.
thing. You've heard a lot of testimony about what he said about times.
Yep.
What time he got home, what time he went to the office, how long he was at Alameda. Certainly, people can have some variability in assessing that. But he almost never was right. Almost never was right.
Because every time was a lie.
6:42, he arrives at Moselle.
Moselle is his street.
Paul, according to his extraction, gets there about 7:04. And about 7:03, we see the defendant steps registering on his phone. And then, over the next 30 minutes or so, we see a symmetry, general symmetry between the steps between Paul's phone and Alex's phone, as he described, walking the property. At 7:39, we have creation of the Snapchat video that had the clothes on it. When that ultimately was recovered and you saw the interview, it was shown to the defendant, who had provided his clothes that night. And at the first time, then, he started talking about changing his clothes, and we'll talk more about that later. Again, 7:55 to 8:05, we have some symmetry with the steps. We have Paul Murdaugh's battery life, and you heard from the experts that have reviewed Paul's usage, that like many kids his age, he's constantly flirting with it being low, but that doesn't stop him from using it, and you see that in the evidence in this case as well. 7:56, again, that's when Paul sends the Snapchat to his friends. And then,
imagine sending a Snapchat of your father to your friends, not even knowing he's about to like kill you. Like, you know what I mean? He's about to kill you with his favorite shotgun, and you're just over here sending Snapchat stories to your friend about the tree you're cutting down, like, or saving. That's crazy, bro.
at 8:08, we see Paul leave the kennel area at 8:06, and 8:08 make his way down to the residence. 8:05 to 8:09, around that time that Paul is getting there at 8:08, that's the last step activity on Alex's phone. And it's the last step activity until 9:02, which we'll talk about in a minute.
And apparently he was napping for like
Alex's
10
phone
minutes.
pretty much goes with no activity for that time period. And also he has no cell activity from 6:52 to 9:04.
So the phone is off.
Which is right in that time period we'll talk about in a little bit. So, eating dinner. You heard the defendant talk about eating dinner. Paul is at that residence, if you look right here, from 8:14 down to 8:35. And again, that timeline exhibit, there's a big one and then there's a condensed one. And all of this is in there in evidence for y'all to look at. He's at that residence from 8:14 to 8:35. Now, the defendant, again, despite having a photographic memory, a new photographic memory about things that he told y'all that people are hearing for the first time, still can't remember specific things about Maggie's activities, as to when Maggie arrived, as to what they talked about. He can remember dropping his phone down in the console, but he can't remember things like that. He wants to remember things that help him try to explain to you why he never told the truth about maybe the most important thing.
Yeah, he's right. Like when they were talking about where Maggie was, when he went down there to like talk to her, and he grabbed the chicken out of the dog's mouth for like 10 seconds and then went back to the house. He was never specific. He was just always like, I don't know. It could have been then. I'm pretty sure it was never a straight answer. And this is why his testimony is falling apart. There's nothing credible. Even if he was innocent, that testimony is going to get him sent to jail.
everything he could tell law enforcement, but he can remember very specific details. He still gets this wrong. But she arrives at 8:17 in Moselle. They're already there. How do we know that? Because her cell phone disconnects from her Mercedes at 8:17, and that's when she starts showing steps. And Paul?
So we know she's there around 8:15. They're all there together. So the whole timeline about him leaving to his mom's house, all that's bullshit. He was there. She was there. All of them were there together. Paul was there with his dead-ass phone, making Snapchats, and he was like, this is the time. This is my chance to get rid of these folks and create the best possible story. And I do think he probably was going to try and frame the dead and make it look like, you know, one of them did to each other, but it didn't work out.
What's he doing? He's still using his phone like always. We see the battery life, but he's still sending snaps. He's receiving snaps, bless you. He's sending to his friends, all these friends right here. He's receiving these snaps all during that time from 8:17 to 8:30, continuing to communicate with his friends, using his phone like always. And then what happens? About 8:30, Maggie's phone registers some steps.
Oh, wow.
And consistent with that, consistent with her and Paul going down to the kennels, riding down to the kennels, we see Paul's Murdaugh phone start showing steps. And then down here at 8:38, he's in that kennel area where those dots are. And if you look at that particular slide from 8:38 to 8:44, that's going to be the last GPS reading on Paul's phone, 8:44. You heard from Rogan.
Yeah, and it shows both of them right there. So they're together, and Alex just got 2 for 1, basically. He pulled up on him. Damn, like the ops. That's crazy. Imagine your own family member doing that.
And you've heard from Rogan as it references this timeline. And Rogan tells you and told you from that witness stand that he was having a conversation with Paul about cash and the dog's tail. They were having an active conversation about that. Paul calls Rogan at 8:40 and they're talking about it. And Rogan says, send me a FaceTime, but if it doesn't work, send me a video. At 8:44, 4 minutes and 14 seconds, we have right here the FaceTime, but it only lasts 11 seconds.
Before his phone dies.
Then at 8:44:55, that's when the kennel video was recorded, that lasts 50 seconds.
Wow. And my boy is on 1%, going at it.
They didn't have Paul's password and couldn't get in. And you heard in the defendant's August 11th statement that when he was asked about Rogan saying he may have heard Alec on the phone during this time, he said, well, I'd be surprised if that were the case. Because law enforcement didn't have this kennel video. They didn't have this kennel video until April of 2022, when Paul's phone was finally unlocked. And that changed everything.
That's crazy. Slam dunk on the prosecution because, I mean, I'm sure Murdaugh did not, he did not expect that part to happen. Like, I guess he was just hoping that they couldn't unlock the phone, but come on, it's the police. They're going to get into it. But, you know, the Snapchat got him. I'm sure he didn't expect a Snapchat to be the thing to send him to jail. But anyway, we're going to move straight over. We have a little bit of body cam of the police going through the house, and it gives you more of an idea of, you know, what they came across and, you know, how the house looked directly after the killing. Let's check this out.
We'll get a dynamic. All right, go ahead and pick that one up. There's two right there.
Yep.
Blackout.
Been here a little while. Should be 300s.
SB 300.
There's one to your right.
Yeah, 300. Yep.
Yeah. And it was, I think there's 5 total I saw.
If he was a true criminal, he would have covered his path better.
Right here.
Yeah, this is that evidence that screwed him over. See, he never really thought that, oh, all these things were happening. Like, I feel like this was a crime, like he said, a crime of opportunity. It wasn't really planned out as well. He just saw his opportunity and took it. But all these small factors will get you, especially proof that the 300 blackout was being shot way after he said it was lost. You know what I mean?
How you doing, sir?
They will bring Paul and Miss Maggie back home, and then from there, you can
Is that Alex right there?
arrange as far as funerals and different things. Oh, y'all's timeline, not out.
What's typical of the autopsy time?
Come back home to y'all tonight. So then from there, you can
Yeah, they are all up in his crib, man. And he's got a lot of guns, guys. Like, he's got crazy guns. He's got a crossbow, all types of shit.
Some of the tests take longer as far as any kind of toxicology or gun stuff, anything like that,
I don't
that they
mean to
may.
be insensitive, but because there are 2 people, it will take a little bit longer, but they will be able to return.
Insensitive. Come on, there's no. Let's just speak candidly.
But there are other tests.
The guy already blew his wife's brain out. Like, there's not too much more to excuse.
That will not affect
No.
you making funeral arrangements at all. That's why they take it to return.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And they're done.
Yes, sir.
So if we tell Alex to give it a couple of days.
I'm gonna step out and call and see if
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to go over that evidence of the guns for Alex Murdaugh. That, I think that's really what put him away. When he, when he said it went missing, and they were still using it clearly, that was the one. But anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. Love y'all. Peace out.